So I am continuing my playthrough of Axis Empires and Daisenso, Total Krieg and Daisenso, and we're now up to the spring season of 1941, which starts with March and April. So I'm going to begin on the European map, and the Axis strategy that is revealed is Operation Marita. And the Axis player has a few options on this card, but they decide to employ Operation Marita and invade Yugoslavia. There is a historical note on this strategy card. It is a quote from Adolf, which says, "The military putsch in Yugoslavia has altered the political situation in the Balkans. Yugoslavia, in spite of her protestations, must be considered for the time being as an enemy and therefore crushed as speedily as possible." End of quote. So Germany declares war on Yugoslavia and then moves forward with that. They do receive a Panzer and 4 infantry corps directly to the map, and they do launch an attack into Yugoslavia, and they get an exchange result, but they do wipe out half of the Yugoslavian forces in that battle. You can see in the picture here, we have this attack at Zagreb, and then the aftermath shows the 2nd Panzer Army has moved towards Sarajevo, and there's not much left of the Yugoslav forces. Then we go to the Western Allies strategy. They reveal Lend-Lease to Britain. So the Western Allies are going to provide financial support from the United States. And apparently what happened is the U.S. passes H.R. 1776 to provide aid to Britain. And this results in a number of things from this card. For one, Iraq gets a free passage marker. Then Great Britain is able to add the Mediterranean fleet to the delay box, which is important. And then the British armor moves from the Africa box that was there earlier and into the Middle East box. You can see it takes quite a bit of time to ship troops from Great Britain to get them into Egypt. And then there's a conditional event segment, and this allows Britain to deploy another colonial unit. So that's pretty much all that happened there. Then we go to the Soviet Union. They reveal their strategy card. It is Peace Offer. So this card allows the army to deploy 3 infantry corps, and they also reorganize their forces in the USSR. And then the politicians have a shot on the conference table, and they roll the dice and get conflicting plans. So it's probably not going to maintain a friendly relationship with Germany. We'll have to wait and see. That brings the March and April turn of the spring to an end on the European map. So we're going to move over to the Asian map. It's still March and April of 1941, and the Japanese government reveals their strategy. It is Russian Neutrality Pact. So they have a non-aggression pact negotiated between Japan and USSR, and basically the USSR and Mongolia become neutral from this, and the Japanese army gets a bunch of infantry replacements. So then the Japanese player decides to go back to work and orders another attack on Wuhan. As you can see in the picture here, both sides have headquarters support, and the Japanese also have support from the Air Force. And the battle this time goes very heavily toward the Japanese, and the Chinese nationalists lose 2 steps. But the city still continues to be under Chinese control. So then we go to the Ally strategy, and President Roosevelt signs an executive order to integrate the Philippines Army with the U.S. Army. The card is called Philippine-U.S. Army Integration. And so a Philippine infantry unit is deployed to Davao, and also this card allows the nationalist Chinese to add replacements to their army. And with the new neutrality agreement, the Soviet Union is really not doing much, and they are playing another border defense strategy card. So it's a fairly, neutral card. But that brings the Pacific map to a conclusion, and we're going to continue on to April and May, but back to the European map. So this time the weather changes, and it affects the northern European map, so it turns to mud. The desert areas, like in Libya, are not affected by the mud. But the mud weather is impactful in this game. I don't think I've reviewed this before, so I'm just going to go over some of the effects that the mud season will have on combat in particular. One, units in an enemy zone of control cannot exit in mud, so they're stuck. There is also no ground combat during a blitz segment. So if you play a blitz card, you won't be able to have a blitz segment if you have mud. You won't have combat during the blitz part of the segment. Also, the defender will get a column shift in their favor, so that would be a leftward shift on the combat results table. The attacker is not allowed to conduct exploitation in mud, and air units can't be deployed in the battle in mud. However, in this case, the German army is going to continue its attack on Yugoslavia anyway, and the Germans end up suffering a step loss due to attrition, but ultimately the Yugoslav army is driven back, and you can see the 2nd Panzer is now there in Belgrade. The Western Allies continue with their Lend-Lease, and they add the South African army to the Africa box. I should say a South African infantry unit. It's probably a very small-sized unit. The armor that was in the Middle East box is now finally able to move to the Suez to join the Commonwealth forces in Egypt and Libya. And then we go to the Soviet Union part of the turn, and they attempt another peace offer. They go to the conference table, and then that results in rolling on the guarantee table, and they get military aid. So they'll be able to add a unit. Anyway, that brings the spring season to a close with April and May of 1941 in Europe. But we'll now move over to the Daisenso map. With the Japanese player, we're starting with a continuation of the combat against Wuhan. And this time, the Chinese nationalists suffer heavy losses. Both sides are using headquarters support. The Japanese have air power again, but the city remains under Chinese control. So it's a long battle here to get to take the city of Wuhan. Then going to the Western Allies, the U.S. Philippine Army is able to deploy more forces to the Philippines, which will be helpful in the future if war breaks out between the U.S. and Japan. And also this card is allowing the nationalist Chinese to bring more replacements in, so they're going to bring these in to Wuhan. The British, though, remain quiet, of course, as we would expect, as well as the Soviet Union with border defense. So that brings the spring season of 1941 to a close. I thank you for following along with me, and stay tuned if you would like to see what happens in the summer of 1941. Have a great day.